Down in three. Oh, iron light, iron bright, first shirt I iron tonight. Charlie, we're here.
Let's do it, man. I don't know. I don't know
You're
what
not
happened last session. I'm not sure
you
you
don't.
know.
You're not gonna
We'll find
believe it.
out.
It's gonna catch you off guard. Last session was a boss fight. I ever since we spent our first few sessions of the campaign, like wandering around a city, meandering, kind of talking. There's a lot of dialogue. I really wanted some boss fights in there, and so over the last like 6 sessions, I've had like 4 boss fights. It's been insane, but it was sweet. So we pick up Foreboding International, party of 4. We've got the 2 doctors, cleric and warlock, Cal and Patch,
I don't
respectively.
know. I don't know about all that. If he's a
Yeah.
doctor, I think he's
Okay.
he can do the healing thing.
All right,
Yeah,
Healy guys, 2 Healy
semantics.
guys.
Semantics.
Baragon Emberclaw, big cat monk man that hits shit with the staff, and Azalea Hyde, Volstrucker for the university, wizard fighter, sort
It's
of
just
girl
that
boss.
Dr. Patch went to school. You know what I'm saying? Cal didn't go to
That's true.
school.
And yet he's the one that does the healing. Whatever. Food for thought. We pick up with the party inside of the living dungeon, second meteorite shard that I designed for last session. It ended up taking 2, kind of unsurprisingly. Um, the party had cleared the first level. They had captured, or the already captured Mind Flayer Regadian is like their pseudo prisoner. He's this super evil guy that just wants to eat their brains. He's very transparent about that. It's his only ambition is to suck their minds out. But they're keeping him. He's in a weakened state still as like a pet. Pretty funny. But the party takes him, adventures down into the second floor. They look around. They find some cool items. There was a huge box that was sealed off from Baragon that had like that required a massive energy source. So they dragged the body of this Hulk that they'd killed upstairs down, plugged it into the energy source. The box opened, and inside of it was an Intuit charge, a little triangle device that can be rigged to make a massive psychic explosion. And it's a massive weapon of mass destruction, which is kind of game changing for the technology of Pragasvar, but nothing's really come up about it since. Because right after that, I had other ways in the third floor of the dungeon that the party could have gone about entering the big fight at the core of it. They had no interest. The party put their hands on the panels, the doors slid open, and the beholder, Ixidril, was there ready for dialogue. Now, Ixidril offered the party an ultimatum. He offered them a chance to not have this huge, devastating fight that everyone knows is coming. And as he's making this offer, the party is realizing they're in an anti-magic cone, which was a big part of this fight and a lot of fun. Because we got 3 spellcasters, basically. But in any case, all he wants is the gun from 3 sessions ago. There's a gun with 5 names on it. There used to be 6, now there are only 5. And the gun can automatically kill or destroy or severely disable, they're not even sure yet, any one of those names, then the name disappears off the barrel. He tells Dr. Claymore Patch, give me the gun, and I'll give you Procures Lokenwild, the next of these duality weapons that the party needs together. So it was like this big dramatic dialogue, and as of course they're conversing, the party is splitting out to sort of strategically dodge the anti-magic cone. It's a 0 gravity fight, which was a lot of fun. I mean, because players could kind of float. We used a clock as the battle map. I'm always looking for alternative battle maps because of the way we're limited technologically. But in any case, no negotiation was struck. The fight began. The Foreboding International put up a really good fight. It was really close at the beginning. I think they actually fell behind in the action economy pretty severely because Ixidril was sending out 6 beams around, 3 with his turn and 3 with his legendary actions. So there are a lot of status effects the party's taken. There are a couple big hits. I know Azalea takes a hit right off the bat. Dr. Patch takes a huge hit right off the bat, wounded by these enervation rays. And at the middle point of the fight, right when the tide is about to turn back towards them because Baragon's been dealing crazy damage, Azalea Hyde, who took a mediocre hit at the start of the fight, gets targeted by a disintegration beam. She counterspells it and fails the counterspell. She makes the dex save and fails the dex save. The damage is even a pretty low roll. It's 20 something, 30 something, but it's enough. it reduces her to ash in front of the party. That picks up Lokenwild. The party rallies again and wins the fight. They had turned it at that point. They had turned a corner past the status effect. But they left Melancholy with Azalea Hyde, no even remains to bring with them. Cal takes a rock in vain. As they leave the meteorite shard, there waiting for them is Arkansas, this magic wizard who's been scrying on them for a long time and sort of presided over the campaign. He was in the one-shot at the start of things. And Arkansas apologizes for their loss, but ultimately, the party learns that Volstruckers, which Azalea was, were a task force made specifically to kill Arkansas. They were trained by the university when he was an opponent of them. They're from rivaling countries. So Arkansas, seeing that they are now without this threat and having much to discuss, teleports all of them to the city of his own name, Arkansas, in Zarastrath, to talk things out further. And that was pretty much the session. Holy fuck. It really was, when you break it down, it was really just one fight and one encounter after the fight. The fight took like 2.5, 3 hours. But yeah, behind the screens for this, I was going off of last session's plans. All I had were the dungeon notes. I was really excited for the Lokenwild reveal. This second weapon. Each of the weapons has the soul of another one of the party's previous characters that they played in a one-shot ages ago. Those characters are embedded in these weapons that their current characters find. And so when Dr. Peck picks up this whip Lokenwild, I had like a 3.5, 4-page monologue from Arlo Fix, Charlie, your character from the one-shot, who I'm just massively fond of. I like the voice, I like the presentation, I like his story a lot, and I tried to be very faithful to the sort of Arlo Fix aesthetic when I continued on with what happened to him, you know? That sort of, yeah, Rat Lad. That he's conniving, he's sharp, but it's also, he's tragic. I mean, shit does not go super well for him through and through. But he learns that he has a child alive, which the party, I'm not sure if anyone's going to remember this callback, which the party saw in a long time ago in a cutscene. They saw a man very young being referred to as Mr. Fix. And they were like, what?
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about it. But I thought, okay, yeah. I wasn't sure when that cutscene took place, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. That was ages ago. But whatever. There are some continuities that I set up a long time ago that I'm really excited to weave back into the story. I don't think any of the party members are going to realize when it happens. I'm definitely going to have to ham-fist it, but there are a few more, and they're going to be sweet. Okay, yeah, but behind the screens, Azalea's death is the big thing from this session, the big thing to take away. The DMPC, she joins a long tradition of DMPCs being brutally murdered. But the difference is this one wasn't scripted. I played it genuine. I played it by the dice. I bullshit a lot of dice, but lately in fights, I've been trying to stick very strictly to the, not the character sheets as they're printed or the monster stat blocks as they're printed, but as I modify them by the start of the fight, right? This was not a normal beholder. It had 8 eye stalks instead of 10. I took out 1 damaging one, which I thought was bullshit, and 1 boring one, like a charm effect or something that was stupid. The big damage effects dealt a little bit less damage. I pretty much unconditionally weakened Beholder. But I stayed really loyal as best I could to the stat block I made. And it was hard to play strategically. I feel differently now about Beholders, which have always been one of my favorite D&D villains. I mean, I was so excited. I love the spatial cosmic horror villains. That's why I threw like a roper at them ages ago in the last shard, and why there's a beholder in this one, why there are mind flayers laying about, you know. I love that aesthetic in D&D, but beholders mechanically are very, I don't think they lend themselves to excellent fights super often. They're scary and dramatic and all of that still, but the rolling to see which eye stalk effect came up prevented me from being strategic very often in the fight in ways that I wanted to. I want to give the party strategic battles. And also it made some non-bows. I mean, there was one point where he hit someone with a paralyzing beam that ended once they took damage, and then hit him right again hit him right away again, with a damaging beam that knocked Dr. Patch out of his stupor. So I ran into some things like that. And also, they're very swingy. This party seemed pretty dominant for FBI by the end of it. They won pretty handily. But what they didn't see and what I did is if another one of them takes one big hit and goes down, there are 6 eye stalks targeting 2 people. Like, the status effects are insane. It's so easy to lose a turn or to lose 2 turns that could be super necessary to bring someone out. So I think the fight was a lot closer than the party thought. Even Baragon, Max, at the end of it was like, yeah, I didn't take damage that fight, And he didn't. I mean, he failed, or he passed a lot of big saving throws. And he also had a weapon which, since its conception, I've been thinking about this fight for that staff. It deflects beams. So there were a couple like 40, 50 point damage swings that Baragon had that made a huge difference. And that was cool. I liked giving him those dramatic moments to like step in and protect a friend by reflecting a missile with it. That was pretty cool. So the fight was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. Azalea's death, it caught me off guard, but after a minute of recuperation, I took it back in stride. I had plans with her character, obviously, in the story coming up, somewhat involved ones, but I think it'll work really interestingly with her gone as well. Because now the party has the chance to meet new people and accrue new bond abilities specifically. The Azalea Hyde bonds were some of my favorites. So now that they're gone, it's kind of difficult. At the last second,
I didn't realize that.
all of it, like Imagine Breaker, which was sweet. So as soon as I realized that, in the break, right after Azalea died, I went onto the Loken Wild like abilities, the whip that Patch got, and I inputted Azalea Hyde's bond ability onto the weapon because I thought it was a little underpowered as well. It does okay damage, but its effects aren't super cool. So now they are. But in any case, they meet Arkansas.
Is all.
The Arkansas intro came about from a desire to kind of not have the party backtrack all the way to Koyadan and just go through a big desert travel thing again. I thought it would have been anticlimactic. So I'm like, you know what? I've wanted to introduce Arkansas. He's one of the 3 major world players they haven't really met yet, right? There's Parless, there's Arlen Lauder, and there's Arkansas. They're the ones involved in the 2 countries that are currently conflicting, which is the major political event of the campaign. So I wanted to introduce the 3rd player. Obviously, they've got some backstory with him. He has an eye patch now, which was like a very brief mention, but I wonder if the party will pick up on that. That is a callback as well. It's kind of a subtle one. But there's a bunch of sweet stuff that's going to come out in the next session in Arkansas. We'll see what the fuck he does. Azalea's death is gonna change the way people look at the party, right? The party who made this huge agreement with Arlen Lauder, who distributes Volstruckers into the world, and the party's learned kind of commands Tyrigland, Nyxfair. They just came from Tyrigland. They kind of commands Nyxfair with a subtle hand. So she's going to be pissed. I mean, probably. We'll find out. But the new implications are fun for me. I look forward to brewing up the new implications that are going to be had by a party that just lost someone that's traveling, There's a lot going on. And I guess as a last note on what DMing the session was like, it was a ton of fun for me to see for the first time the dualities, 2 of them in the same session. So we've got Charlie, you are now role-playing 2 characters in most social situations with the FBI. So is Dr. Patch. I mean, he's the soul in the staff, his former character, and his current character. And now so are you. Both Arlo and Cal. So that's going to be fucking hilarious to watch it play out. I mean, your voices are different enough that you can distinguish really well what's going on. But Dr. Patch is not necessarily sounding very different from Mislin. So it's going to be funny. I'm gonna enjoy watching the charades from that go through. Oh, geez. Big sad death. Pour one out to Azzy. Awesome boss fight. The show must go on. That's pretty much that was session 12 of Pragasfar with Foreboding International. Things are speeding up.
You're gonna have to give me the guy mowing in the other yard, and I gotta get my charger.
Oh,
We'll edit this out, or we'll keep it in. You know,
yeah.
organic
Imagine
hearing.
existing in reality during a talk show. And now that Charlie's gone, oh man, what nasty secrets can the B-Bag's gonna make an appearance soon. It's gonna happen. I hope he doesn't launch this back, but it. I haven't determined who the big ultimate antagonist of the game is supposed to be. But since Pragasfar was conceptualized as something that was a defensive fantasy, right? It asks the question. This whole world asks the question: why do we play D&D? It's time for them to see the opposite answer. And now that I'm sure Charlie didn't hear any of that, we can get back to addressing him. Oh, he still doesn't have his headphones in, does he?
No, I can hear you.
Damn it!
I didn't mute you.
Awkward turtle.
I left outside. I walked outside, so I probably didn't hear whatever spoilers you meant to mention.
Excellent. No, yeah, I just totally dumped it.
What Azalea? You mentioned Azalea was like the first crack in the facade, the chink in the armor of the world, and now whatever events were set forth in that moment where she was like, is this world real? Who knows?
The world smooths itself over. It's Pragasfar's defense against me, I think, against its creator.
I have a lot of thoughts about that Beholder fight. But we'll talk about it.
We'll get around.
The post interview.
Oh yeah.
But at any rate, baton over to me. We're picking up from last week. Main players in the session are Kartikeya. And by players, I mean player. This was a separate shot. If you'll recall, Kartikeya, our Warforged Blade Singer Wizard was compelled magically to get as far away from a magical artifact set of chains as he possibly could. So he naturally plane shifted to the Feywild. So he's having this conversation with one of the guards of the city, the guards being the Jupiter sentries. This is the garrison leader, Gwatney. Gwatney takes up the D&D equivalent of a phone call in the middle of a conversation and offers and explains himself. He says, okay, I don't know why I'm investing in you. You just appeared here in the city. You're a giant steel wooden dude. What reason would I have to invest in you? It's a hunch. You know, what are the odds it's a coincidence that spell scrolls are stolen from the University of Isilond, the biggest city in the Feywild, the most established, and you just appeared here and started asking after them. I'm not going to take you in. I'm not going to take you in like probably, you know, the law would require of me. But I'm going to ask you again, you know, I'm going to pass a ball over to you. Do you want to go through with this? Do you want to see what we can do? And Kartikeya, being a strategic type of person, he says, or it says, because Kartikeya does not consider itself a person. We'll get into that's a bomb. I'm sure. Yeah. yeah. That's a bomb to drop. We'll get into that because I have not done enough speaking about that. Pronouns. Anyway, it says, okay, I'll go along with your charade. I'll go on this goose chase so long as I get a spell scroll out of it. I mean, I need to get back to the material plane. At the end of the day, that's what I need. And so Garrison Lear Gwatney is very performative about saying no in front of the guards of the Deep Shrine Library to which those spell scrolls belong. He says, okay, well, it's a shame that you can't help us. So if you change your mind, you know where to find me. And he's like, you know, being very obvious about it. And he rides off on his fey weird lizard horse. Kartikeya, knowing that this was probably a performance, kind of tags it, puts it in the back of his mind, and passes by the statue of Greg's previous character's past life, Lao Shinaloro, one more time. And in the statue, Lao Shinaloro is brandishing a blade. But when he comes back and passes by the statue a second time, the blade's length is half as long. Kartikeya clocks it. What are the odds that the statue changed in the span of time where he spotted his previous character, didn't recognize him, even though he should have, and left, and then came back? Well, he logs that too. Another clue, smoking gun, he likes to call it. And he shuttles off to the sort of the residential and arts district of the city. Oh God, I came up with such a great name for it. Oh, the Moss. It was like the Moss something. It's a great name. I'm gonna remember it. Like the Moss District or the Moss Quarter. It was the Moss Quarter.
The Moss Quarter.
And he's looking for an inn. He's looking for a place where seedy mercenaries would sit around, looking for money, looking for jobs for money. He
tried to start his own campaign.
Checks. Greg told me this. He said, unless the pot's sweet enough, like I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna do whatever I think is gonna get me back to the material plane fastest. And I was like, yeah, it's reasonable. So he doesn't find what he's looking for, but he does find his previous character's arch enemy, an Aarakocra called Quaff. And I'll get into what this one shot was kind of about. I probably mentioned it a little bit in our previous episode that I haven't watched. So that's why I'm a little bit shaky on remembering what I'd mentioned, what I hadn't. He meets this Aarakocra, who introduces himself as, I think in a state of panic, I realized that probably this guy would introduce himself. This Aarakocra, this Quaff he's a bad guy, right? He would probably use a fake name. I think I named him Lyndon. Anyway, he introduces himself as Lyndon, offers to do the job, bargains for a higher price because, of course, this guy recognizes Kartikeya. You know, Quaff is here for a purpose. It's not clear yet what it is, but he's a bird man. He sees a lot. He's very perceptive. Bird's eye view, all the overused literary.
The proverbs they're included. I understand.
Right. Yeah. Kartikeya kind of aggravated and resigned. I think I did too good of a job trying to convince Kartikeya that this was just a regular Aarakocra that just wanted extra money. And so he leaves. He's like, okay, well, I'll do it myself then. And goes back to rendezvous with Garrison Leader Gwatney at the University of Islam. He goes back into the building he just flew out of. People immediately are perturbed. People are making phone calls. And Garrison Leader Gwatney sort of rolls back in, intervenes, leaves him upstairs and introduces him to Greg's previous character's wife, whose name is Volna Fashara. She's a professor at the University of Islam that the party had already met. She kind of explains that her husband, Greg's previous character, Azaki, had this tattoo on his shoulder, this mystical tattoo that seemed to have all manner of abjurative and enchantment and divinative sort of magics in it that were manipulated by the forces that be, the BBEG's forces, back in the real world. And she explained that they were in the university trying to find a way to get it off of him so that he could rejoin civilian life and find some peace like he intended when he moved back in with his wife. But something happened. Azaki seemed to go berserk. He knocked out one of the lab's attendants, one of the scientists, the principal investigator, stole the spell scrolls and fled the building. Kartikeya's piecing together kind of mysteries. He's trying to figure out like what's the point? Why would Azaki go to all this? trouble? Why did it coalesce just then? Why are the people that are involved? What do spell scrolls have to do with anything? He notices that there is a tawny feather through a skylight in the lab that disappears as soon as he notices it. But he sort of clocks that too, yet another smoking gun, and continues this sort of goose chase through the city to kind of try and resolve the mystery of his previous character. So, kind of behind the screen here, I do want to kind of elucidate some things that maybe weren't clear. The whole point of this kind of singular sort of goose chase that I'm sending Greg's new character on is because when he told me that he wanted to play a new character, I was distraught. I was like, I've never heard of a campaign where a person just got tired of their character. Like they felt finished. I've never heard of someone approaching their DM and saying, "Okay, I'm ready to play a new character." And I thought I'd done something wrong. I thought I'd done something to the extent that I couldn't invest Greg in his character, and I was really heartbroken because I'd built a lot of a world around him. But Greg was adamant. He felt very strongly. He said he was finished. I don't know. It was this very strange conflict, and I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure that DM, like if I talk to enough DMs, they'll say, yeah, some characters, first and second characters in a D&D campaign, it's hit and miss. And maybe, I have to take some responsibility here. Maybe I didn't do a good enough of a job engaging Greg with his character. But it's not worth laboring over because Greg had made up his mind. So I went through the lengthy grieving process of letting go of a character that didn't actually exist. It was frustrating and humiliating and embarrassing. And Greg and I spent a lot of conversations talking about it where we both felt quite frustrated. And so my grief manifested in this sort of one-shotty, two-shotty, three-shotty adventure in the Feywild for his new character, wherein I felt I got to apologize and make right the grief that I put myself and him through switching out his character. It's not something that I realized at the end of his character's time in the Feywild, that I really did it for me more than I did it for him. I wanted to prove something to myself that I could keep this character in orbit in the vicinity of the world and have him make an impact, prove to myself that he's not gone forever, that there's still a reason for him to be around. And Greg was entertained by it. I don't know, but I think Greg is like he's just happy to be there. He's just happy to be around. He's happy to he gives feedback, and to him, his ability to divorce his ego from the game, like it was never even a thought that passed through his mind. Oh, I'm gonna get my ego so wrapped up in this game that I'm going to hinge certain, truths about myself or things that I value about myself on it. And he's an enormously grounding person. I think I've mentioned this before. I won't go too at length about it. But I resurfaced all of these elements of his previous character's backstory and trying to tie them into the story because, they were important. And it really introduced to me this challenge of, reconciliation, of letting go, of grieving. I don't know. And it like I said, it was fun too. I think he had fun. Little mystery, little one shot. It's not something I'd do again. Separating the party, I recently issued sort of a feedback survey to my party. And a lot of this campaign yet far has been me separating them and there's been a lot of time spent waiting. Josh, you and I have both kind of had a conversation about like how lucky are we to have players that are mature and patient and grateful enough to just sit and watch for a while. But that doesn't mean that they're not having less fun than if they actually just got to play. And that's kind of, we came to a point of critical mass where the party was separated so often and they spent so much time waiting. So this was my second to last foray into separating the party when the stakes were really high. And I'm glad I did it. And, I think it made sense at the time because everybody was so busy. Being able to pull people for individual sessions or two-person sessions, like I mentioned with our bard and our dwarven artificer, Keith and Gleason, that was great because they had time. Gabe and Mac, who play their characters respectively, they had time to play. This whole game, all these players have been an exercise in. I started this campaign, we were all in one place in college. And now not only have we spread across the earth, and this is going to keep resurfacing, right? Not only have we all spread across the earth, we have such different lives that it's hard to play D&D. I'm coming up on my time here, but the last thing I'll say is the push and pull with this game, with my heart and my investment in it has been a truly humbling experience. And as much as I think it might estrange a lot of people from the game, with Jordan's help here, Mr. Jordan, I have, it's sort of doubled my love and investment in it. It's strange how challenges strengthen our convictions. So that's me. That's my time. Let's open it up, man.
That's Jesus fuck, it's heavy, dude. Like I can tell that with all these character callbacks, you're going to elicit an emotional response, right? Because you have one, it's there, the gun is loaded, right? Like all of the tensions necessary for an explosion are present, and then you're just pushing it in front of Mr. Sparky new character here.
I don't know.
In that realm? Does he even play that way? Do you know?
What do you like? Say what you said, but in a different way.
Do you think Greg Kartikeya is picking up what you're putting down? Like, is he equally invested in these things that he's coming across?
I think it's more complex, but I'm gonna say no.
Well, because, I mean, that's the vibe I got, right?
Yeah, because it's like I said, right? Even when it comes to scheduling, even when somebody like something comes up for somebody, I'm like grieve, and part of it is like Greg has this vibrant, colorful life right now. I'm unemployed. D&D is like the thing right now.
Same. Oh, I mean,
there are different times in our life when different things will tide us over in the space between spaces. And for Greg, it was and is and probably always will be a game. And that's what it is. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm trying to be like him. I'm trying to get to a point where I have a really healthy relationship with this story. And it's not been easy. Even lately, I've been thinking about like, okay, what if one of my players is like, yeah, it's not logistically, it's not really gonna work out in like a month or two. I'm probably gonna have to tap out. There's not gonna be time. What is that gonna look like? How am I gonna feel? Will we move forward? Will we wrap up the campaign early? Because we just hit on arc 3, so this is the last one. And I don't think it's gonna be a short one. And we've been playing for some years, and it's just like you said, Josh, it's like with with our previous campaign with Big Bendra, you gotta get boots on the ground. You gotta get wheels on the tarmac. You gotta get moving. And if you don't, then you risk stagnation. You risk enough time passing where it's just doesn't make sense anymore. It's first time DMing has been, one of the humbling experiences of my life. The thing that's helped though is coming up with my next campaign idea, right?
You're already brewing ahead of yourself.
The end of the world, it's not going to be the end of the world because I've already started a new one, in my own head. But yeah, man.
That's weird that you find yourself in that dilemma though, because I've run into a similar and yet opposite problem wherein like you are so invested in this game and your players are very disparate, are very distant people that keep coming back together and keep trying, but it's tough, right? That connection is tough. And I'm so invested in my players as friends. This entire campaign is an excuse to get to spend more time with you three, right? That was the entire premise from the start. And I asked myself, well, why does it have to be D&D that we do this, And so the point of the campaign is asking why does this have to be, et cetera, et cetera. But I've run into the problem where I spend way more time with Houston, with Max, when they are Baragon and Clay, and it's a weird problem. I didn't expect it to feel kind of weird, but I don't know what's going on with Houston's life or Max's life, I get to be in touch with you a little bit more because of things like this show, which are really precious to me. But that begs the question, why are we all playing D&D and not all just making Ironlight shows?
I mean, that's what adult life is about, because
adult. I just said adult life, and I was like, holy shit.
That's what adult. Come at me.
That's what boring people go through.
Yes, well, yeah, that's what happens to people whose lives aren't interesting. No, when the Ironlight show is getting to a strangely existential.
It was inevitable.
We're talking. It was inevitable. It was inevitable. When you move from a place, when you're as mobile as you are, when you're in our demographic group in your 20s, then the way that you get back together with your old friends that you don't live anywhere near anymore is rituals. Like the thing that pops into my head that maybe this will connect for some people. I haven't taken you as a Cody Coe or a Noel Miller sort of fellow, Josh, but these two YouTube comedians, the way that they spend time together is they record a podcast once a week. And honestly, like their sort of content is less focused. Like they really just try to be funny for an hour, but that's when they hang out. Like, I don't know their story, but the impression I got was that they used to spend a lot more time together, but now they're both, engaged. One of them, Noel's engaged. Cody is in a very long-term relationship. They're living, I think, in pretty different places. They're both busy with careers that are diverging more and more. But that's when they come together. They make music, they record this podcast. And I'm sure they've sat down and been like, dang, I wish we could just, like, some of the moments that you cherish the most when you can just spend as much time as you want with somebody is those in-between moments, driving to Taco Bell.
Absolutely.
That comfortable silence in the last half hour where you're mulling over whether or not you should leave and go and do productive things with your life. All that's left until we all converge in physical space are these rituals, man, these traditions. And I hope you don't ever undervalue them, because
no, I would. They are mystical. There's nothing quite like it. We still do it. I mean, it's a practice I still go into with all energy, for sure.
Yeah, no, my point being, I've undervalued it. With my campaign, it's like, does this feel fake? Like, do I know these people or do I just know their characters?
Damn. It's like a cop car.
Does it matter? I don't know.
One for the philosophers, but we'll keep asking that question outside of game and trying to find ways to process it in game. I have absolute faith in such creators as us.
Absolutely. So we got like a soft 20 left.
Let's talk about it. What's hot? What's happening?
Okay, here I want to start in on the Beholder fight.
Oh, that was the biggest fight of the campaign yet, for sure.
Yeah. Something that I didn't clock until probably days after the Beholder fight. Big Boy had a sleep ray.
Yeah.
If that hit Cal,
it hit Baragon once, but you were right next to him. You were right next to him.
That might have been.
And you were next in initiative. It was really fortunate, I think.
I mean, that we lost Azalea.
Yeah.
What fighting a Beholder and Reeves. I don't know how much we've told the audience. I don't know how comfortable we feel telling the audience.
Yeah. It's since the party knows, it's an open secret. If Cal's character goes down in combat, the party has another enemy. Reeves is always held at bay by like a subconscious effort from Cal that puts a toll on his body. But if you go down, those mental defenses let loose and he's there.
Yeah.
Which the party forgets, I think. I think that Clay and Baragon do not always have that in mind.
I think I'm not sure if Dr. Patch clocked this because Cal sleeps every night. But right I forget, right at the beginning, somebody told, I think it was Penvale told somebody bless me, that don't let Cal fall asleep.
Right.
Yep. There was a lot going on there. And
early warning to Baragon.
I don't know if Patch ever thought about this. Like, should I be keeping Cal awake? No, he needs a long rest. Like, he's not like Patch doesn't need to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Which still I'm putting together. And Cal does because he's a dude. But
they're either going to remember it or they're going to find themselves one day after a fight. Cal's going to wake up and it's going to be him in his body with his clothes torn and his dead friends tethered into his arms with holes in their sternum.
12 days, man. 12 days. 12 days. And maybe
it's 11 now.
11.
And we'll have a very brief time skip no matter what, traveling from...
When did Arkansas lose an eye?
It'll come up next session.
Cutscene.
Yeah,
I'm thinking through a one shot. I'm thinking through a cutscene. I won't.
Don't hurt yourself too bad. It's cool.
Short
circuit. Yeah, I don't know. It ended up being a very good, very dramatic fight. Max seemed disappointed that his character wasn't injured, so I want to make sure that I spread the damage love a little bit. I can't really strategize as a Beholder though. So
wait, what do you mean? What do you mean, Max? What did you say, Max?
He was like, "Oh, Baragon didn't take any damage." And I was like, "Well, all right, fuck you." Like, yeah, you did, idiot.
Yeah, it's a status effect. No. I don't
think monks are bullshit. Monks are bullshit, man.
I don't think, man. Listen, I don't think that Max was that upset about it. I think that it made you explain it away. You were like, "Yeah, it's a status effect fight," and I think Max is like, "Oh." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, action economy, dude.
I don't know.
Blah blah blah.
It was gonna be perfect.
Yeah, of course.
You hate complaining, Jordan, and I love complaining. We gotta strike a balance, but I'm not going to, so you should.
If I were you, I'd complain all day about Kartikea, about that player character behavior, because I get it. I get that you two are on the same page. I get that it works. I get that you're friends. You probably both know each other and what one another want pretty badly, and your incompatibility in a session is like an old married couple squabbling. I can totally see that. But there is immense value to DM signaling. It's People call things railroading and write it off way too hard. Video games give you direction. Stories give you direction. They give you ultimate direction. Real life gives you direction, right? Whether you accept it or not is whatever, but D&D I think is hyper criticized for DMs setting out paths forward for players. So a player that radically rejects them when you know there's going to be content there, probably dramatic good content sculpted for you. I just want to scream, man. I want to push off the dice off the table.
I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Like I was talking to my dad yesterday, and he loves hearing about D&D, and he goes, "So before your sessions, are you writing chapters before your session?" And I say, no, if you write too much, then it never goes to plan. You know, your players do something else. You have to write enough. You have to write a framework. You have to write a skeleton.
A plastic one, a moldable one, right?
Right. And
that's tough.
So I write like 9-10 pages before a session.
Shoot. Okay, Cap.
Double spaced in my defense. Just descriptions, cutscenes. They're bulleted lists as well. Dialogue, prompts, carry through on conversations. I don't know. It's way less than I used to do. You know what I'm saying? My point being, Greg straight up, he's like, listen, Charlie, the thing I care about in this game is choice. Okay? Give me the choices. 100%. Like, write the story, man. That's important. You're the DM, you know, and as a DM, you gotta love writing the story. But the ultimate balance is choice versus direction. Right? And that's a balance that I will always be grateful to Greg and to myself for striking over and over again. I think my game, I think I feel so ready to DM for the rest of my life and have just like such a fun game because of all the times where I've been like, you know what? I'm so glad I gave these characters choice because the thing that they came up with was way better than anything I ever could have. You know, it's our story. It's not mine. That's the fact. That's facts at the end of the day.
Reactive DMing. I, at the end of the day, agree with you. I don't reduce it to choice versus scriptedness so much anymore. Because I just, what I've started doing, this is very new with Pragasfar. I wonder if this has made it through in gameplay, has been like, not specifically planning out events with characters, not having big ideas that could come up, but instead taking a mind for drama, taking a mind for storytelling, you know? And when I see opportunities for that come up in game, I just take it. I just go. It just happens. Why was Arkancelis there? I was like, the party's talking about a long walk back to Koyaden. I want to introduce this guy. I think he could swirl down riding Baragon's Drake because he mind controls Baragon's Drake just to make an entrance, right? And in that sense, do players have choice, you know, or not? I don't know if that's a really useful duality for me.
No, I think I've always respected that about you, Jojo, because the more abstract, the more pliable and moldable that you make your story, I mean, the more choice, the more it's like you're a player at that point because you're making things happen. You just have a degree of separation, more control over what happens compared to your players. But always when I hear about you telling me this, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because my campaign is slowly but surely coming to an end, or at least 2/3.
Yeah. Well, it's the closing arc. I mean, you should be thinking about it.
Right. The more that I improvise, the more that I throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks, the more loose ends I risk not being able to tie up.
That's a good point. I totally run the same risk.
I have no joke. I have a list in my D&D notes called loose ends. Yep. And the list is only getting longer.
Oh, I've had a few loose end lists.
greatest fear is at the end of the campaign, one of my players goes, so this was something I was always wondering about. Like, what was going on with this? And then I go, and then I don't know. Like, I completely forgot because my world extended past me.
That stuff's always going to happen, though. That's the real world, you know?
I'm in this fight, man, because you want to make everything mean something. You want to make everything mean something. I'm trying so hard not to add anything, and I'm trying to stay in my world and not get too big of a head. I'm trying to create these beautiful payoffs.
Totally. I think that's a healthy way to go for it, though.
Right. But that also prevents me from doing what you've been doing that I've always sort of wanted to do, which is something I would do more when our campaign was in its adolescence. Throw a dragon in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Have somebody show up.
And honestly, Charlie, from the bottom of my heart, I think you don't control as much of your game as I do because you have so many more players, because you have so much going on. Like, Pragasfar is I hit a big reset button, and Pragasfar is a pretty new project, so I have a ton of freedom there. If we were in the same campaign with the FBI a year later, I can't be doing the same dragon tear open the roof shit, because now we've set precedents. I mean, the way the world works is really set in stone. So
it's like passionate love versus companionate love.
Sure.
At the beginning of the relationship, it's like, oh, everything's so new and I can just try things and we're getting to know each other. And companionate love is not less cool. It's stable. It's like things have been coalescing for years, and you know, at the end of the day, when you kneel and you pop that ring out, that's gonna feel so great because of all the bullshit, all the like now you got to start planning for logistics. Oh, we got to schedule this flight so we can see your parents for this holiday. Oh, but I wanted to see my family for that holiday. How are we gonna work this out? You know what I'm saying? And all that bullshit, all of it, all the logistics, all the money, the budgeted time, the time off of work, the PTO, it all feels worth it in that moment where, you know, you pop that ring out in Disney World, you know?
Totally. The point past which all of the dramatis presentation has to kind of curb itself.
I'm trying to
love
it.
Whether or not it happens in one event, right. I mean, it can be in a process.
I'm trying to love it. I'm trying to love it, and it's hard. It's a fight, and usually I win. But sometimes I lose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, man. I'm just trying to get to a point where when it's not so much a win or lose. It's like this is sort of an in-between session where things are kind of ramping up and characters got to role play a lot, and I got to do a little bit less work because I got to react sort of. And this is where I need to start buckling down, you know, bringing characters in, tying up loose ends. It's yeah.
And I mean, how you do that is just a logistics question itself. I have this new policy. I just hit this point in Pragasfar very recently where I'm like, I don't want to introduce new characters. I think I have enough players mentioned that if I want something to happen in a game, then I'm going to take someone that I've used before and come up with a reason that they would be doing the thing that I wanted to happen.
Right, exactly, right. And like the my party, the brains and bots, that's what they call themselves. I don't know if I've mentioned that. You're great about calling them by their group name. The brains and the bots, because they got constructs and steel defenders, and also their bots is not very high. So it's an ironic thing. But they've explored such a tiny portion of the continent. You know what I'm saying? So out of necessity, I would have to introduce all these new characters if I decided that it would be worth it to them to explore the rest of the continent for any reason. I don't know. It's, you know what I laughed about that I didn't ask you about? We're coming up on time. We got like 6 minutes left.
Sure.
is when we were in not Koyeden, Dunving, and Baragon was like, I just want to see what the local shops. Like, I just want to go and see. And I watched the gears turn, and you were like, "Fuck! I didn't make any shops."
It's really quiet evening. People really aren't out there. There's a sand trout dealer. Sand trout is the thing now. I stole that from you.
Max was trying so hard to pull it out of you, and you were doing so beautifully, and I'm sure it didn't feel graceful. But I was like, man, that's my worst nightmare, is that moment where, and I've been in that position before where one of my players is like, I just want to see what the city's like.
Did you see how I fielded that though? I remember that vividly because I handled it in a very Josh Jordan DMing way, which is inconsequential, wander through a few shops, I'm not really interested, bargain with some random NPC that doesn't do much. I reintroduce someone who talked to Dr. Patch ages ago, a member of the guild, and I'm like, fuck, this needs some weight. There needs to be a reason that Baragon's here. Her name's Kanashir. I just dropped it. One of the names on the gun, one of the names you're looking for. So the gun, I think, is a brilliant storytelling device. I profoundly recommend it. There will be some version of it in every game I run for the rest of time because it has names on it the party doesn't know. So if you need to add tension to a situation, someone says their name and it's on the gun, you know? And all of a sudden you've got a whole new network of reasons to talk to this person.
So, I was thinking about the gun.
It saved me. The gun saves me. It's a really cool device.
There was that moment. There was that moment in the capital city of the continent called Meridian. I gave Meridian that name because initially I called it Maerdian, like the city where Clark was from.
Yeah.
One of my players mispronounced it, and I was like, that sounds better. So we just called it Meridian. But he got into the city and he was like, you know what? Elves don't have to sleep that much. So I'm going to use the 2 hours that the rest of the party is long resting. And I'm just going to like wander around the city because it was written into his story that he knew the city. And I'd written a lot of things thoroughly about that city, but not sort of the underground black marketness of the place. Hold on, give me just a second. I'm getting a call that might be important.
Shady dealers.
We'll keep it in.
No, we'll edit all this out in post. Oh, Charlie's not listening. I can say super secret things. Welcome to the Josh Alone episode of the Ironlight Show. Here we're going to talk about solitude and how much we miss our dear friends. I'll soliloquize now. Probably won't crop this out because it's too much work, but yeah, man. I'm the luckiest DM in the world. I got great players. Imagine having 6 of them, though. I'd kill a few of them just offhandedly. Just don't come back. It's too much. The time it takes, surely, to play is Bonobo's cursed critical role for setting that precedent. Can't get away with it. Even they have their Yashas that stay silent all session. You know, they're Ashley Johnsons that just kind of take a backseat. It's not worth it. Split into 2 groups. Anyways, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. What should I be doing when he comes back? Singing? Something dangerous? Ooh, maybe I'll show some DM secrets that he shouldn't be able to see yet. Except I'm not sure if he can hear me. And I did lie earlier. Whoa, hey, Charlie.
Uh-oh.
Wasn't about to say
that. Here we go. I'm coming back. I'm unmuting you.
How's Meridian this time of year?
We're coming into autumn in the world. It's
nice.
Getting chillier.
Pregaspar 2 soon.
Wow. Seasons, time. I admire you. We're coming up on the hour. I admire you and final thoughts, closing remarks. Complete aside. You and Big Bendra's like cosmos is developed. You have 3 sons. They're talking about what day is it? I'm talking like, I don't know, Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have a calendar. I don't have months and years. They got one sun and one moon. They got tides. It's around Earth. It's like a round planet, I think. Is it a planet? Is it just I don't know. It's not fleshed out. People haven't asked. I think my party gets the sense that if they dig around enough, it'll just be like cobwebs and things I filed away that aren't fully developed, and I'll be like, I'm,
just do what sounds cool. Yeah, there are 4 moons actually. They're invisible in the night sky. They never get sunlight. No one knows why they're invisible either. They're just there. Someone saw a dragon fly from one once. It's a weird time.
The whale, holy shit, dude! The whale on Victorian.
Oh,
what?
That's sweet.
Cal knows a lot about Nanode, about the astral plane or the ethereal plane or whatever we decided to call it. Charlie does not. So
it'll come up. It'll be a huge part of the next arc. I'm really excited for the Cal, the 3rd meteorite shard, the return to Bellamon in some form.
Boy, it's gonna be sick. Bellamon.
I got big plans. We'll see. But yeah, the only closing remark is whatever we feel about this game, whatever we go through, we decide it's worth it every time we roll the dice. So it was,
well done, well said. Good game, bad game. Good show,
bad game.